I came home expecting a quiet evening, but instead, I found my brother inside my house, like he owned it. And when I checked my security cameras later that night, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a plan. My name is Lily Anderson, and I'm 56 years old now. But what I'm about to tell you happened not too long ago on the day I learned just how far my own family was willing to go. Growing up, my parents always favored my younger brother, Daniel. It wasn't something they openly admitted, but it was obvious. He got more attention, more support, more understanding. And when he made mistakes, they were always forgiven. Daniel's just going through a phase, my mother would say. He'll figure things out, my father would add. Meanwhile, I was expected to be responsible, stable, independent, which at first didn't seem like a bad thing, until I realized it also meant I was expected to handle everything on my own. When I bought my house, it was one of the proudest moments of my life. No help, no co-signers, just years of saving, planning, and working hard. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. Every corner of it reflected the life I had built for myself. And for the first time, I felt completely secure. My parents visited a few times after I moved in. They smiled, complimented the place, but there was always something underneath it. A quiet sense of evaluation, like they were measuring it, comparing it, not to anything I had, but to something they thought I should share. Daniel, on the other hand, never really settled down. Jobs came and went. Apartments came and went. At one point, he moved back in with our parents. Again, he just needs time, my mother said. He'll get back on his feet. That phrase again, time, as if time alone fixed everything. One afternoon, about 6 months before everything happened, my parents invited me over for dinner. It seemed normal, until it wasn't. We were sitting at the table when my father brought it up. "Lily," he said casually, "have you ever thought about helping your brother out?" I already knew where this was going. "How?" I asked carefully. My mother smiled. "Well, your house has extra space." I stared at her. "You want Daniel to move in? Just temporarily," she said quickly, "until he figures things out." I shook my head slowly. "No." The word came out calmly, but firmly. My father frowned. "It's not a big ask." "It is to me," I replied. "It's my home." My mother sighed. "You're being a little selfish." There it was, the word that always came when I set a boundary. Selfish. "I worked for that house," I said. "And I'm not comfortable sharing it." My brother leaned back in his chair, clearly annoyed. "So I'm just supposed to struggle while you have all that space?" I looked at him. "You're supposed to figure things out," I said quietly, just like I had. The conversation didn't end well. Tension, silence, disappointment hanging in the air. But I didn't change my mind. And after that night, they stopped bringing it up. Or at least, that's what I thought. Weeks passed, then months. Everything seemed normal again. No arguments, no pressure, just occasional calls and short visits. I assumed they had accepted my decision. I was wrong. The day everything changed started like any other. I had gone out for a few hours, running errands. Nothing unusual. When I pulled into my driveway later that afternoon, I noticed something strange. A car, parked right in front of my house. Daniel's car. My chest tightened. I hadn't invited him over. I hadn't even spoken to him in days. I stepped out of my car slowly. Something didn't feel right. As I walked toward the front door, I noticed it was slightly open. Just a few inches. My heart started racing. Because I always lock my door. Always. I pushed it open, carefully. "Hello?" I called out. No response. But I could hear movement inside. Footsteps. Voices. I stepped into the living room. And that's when I saw them. My brother, standing in the middle of my house, holding a box. My parents beside him, looking completely comfortable. Like they belonged there. For a second, I couldn't speak, because nothing about this made sense. "What are you doing?" I finally asked. Daniel turned toward me like this was completely normal. "Oh, hey," he said casually. "We're just moving some of my stuff in." My mind went blank. Moving? What? My mother stepped forward. "We talked about this, Lily." "No," I said immediately. "We didn't." My father crossed his arms. "You refused before, but we figured you'd come around." I stared at them. "You figured wrong." Daniel sighed, clearly irritated. "Come on, Lily. Don't make this a big deal." "A big deal?" I repeated. "You're in my house, with my stuff, without my permission." My mother's tone changed, more firm. "You're overreacting." That was it. That moment, the exact moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. They had made a decision, without me, about something that belonged to me, and they expected me to accept it. I took a slow breath, then said clearly, "You need to leave." Silence. My father shook his head. "No." One word. But it said everything. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't fully seen before. They didn't think I would stop them. They thought I would give in, like always. But this time, I wasn't going to. Because what they didn't know yet was that every single thing they had done, from unlocking my door, to stepping inside, to moving those boxes, had already been recorded. And once I showed them the footage, nothing would ever be the same again. For a few seconds after my father said no, the room went completely still. Not quiet. Still, like everything had frozen in place. I looked at all three of them, my brother standing there with a box in his hands, my mother trying to look calm, my father holding that same firm expression I had seen my entire life. The difference this time was me, because I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. "I'm not asking," I said slowly. "You need to leave." Daniel let out an annoyed laugh. "Seriously, Lily? You're going to throw your own family out?" "Yes." The word came out sharper than I expected, but I didn't soften it. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was trying to calm a situation I had created. "Lily, don't do this," she said. "He just needs a place to stay for a while." I shook my head. "No, he needs to respect boundaries." My father's tone hardened. "You're being unreasonable." I met his eyes. "No, I'm being clear." That didn't sit well with him. It never did, because clarity meant control was slipping away. Daniel dropped the box onto the floor with a thud. "Fine," he snapped. "Let's stop pretending this is just about space." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He looked at me, frustration all over his face. "You've always thought you're better than me." The accusation hit the air like a spark. "I don't think that," I said. "You act like it." He shot back. "No," I replied calmly. "I act like someone who worked for what she has." That silence again. But this time, it wasn't just tension. It was exposure. Because deep down, he knew it was true. My mother quickly stepped in. "This isn't about that," she said. "Then what is it about?" I asked. No one answered. And that was the answer. I took a step back, creating distance between us. "You came into my house without permission," I said. "You unlocked my door. You started moving things in." My father interrupted. "We have a key. That doesn't give you the right," I replied. "It's for emergencies." "This is an emergency," my mother insisted. "No," I said firmly. "It's a choice. One you made without me." Daniel shook his head. "You're making this way bigger than it needs to be." I looked at him. "You broke into my house." "We didn't break in," he said quickly. "We used the key." "That's still not permission." Another silence. He didn't argue that. Because he couldn't. I walked past them slowly toward the hallway. "Where are you going?" my mother asked. "To get something," I said. My heart was steady now, clear, focused, because I knew exactly what I needed to do. I walked into my home office and opened my laptop. The security system app was already installed, always running, always recording. Something I had set up years ago, not because I expected this, but because I believed in protecting what was mine. I clicked on the footage from earlier that day. The timestamp loaded, and there it was. My driveway, my front door, everything. I hit play and watched. My parents' car pulling up, Daniel stepping out, boxes in his hands, my mother looking around. Then, my father reaching into his pocket, pulling out the spare key, unlocking my door, walking in. No hesitation, no doubt, no attempt to call me, no attempt to ask. Just action. Like it was already decided. Like I didn't matter. I closed the laptop slowly, took a deep breath, and walked back into the living room. They were still there, waiting, expecting another argument, another emotional reaction. Instead, I placed the laptop on the table and turned it toward them. "What's that?" my brother asked. "Watch," I said. My father frowned. "We don't need to." "Watch," I repeated. Something in my voice made him stop. Reluctantly, they looked at the screen. I pressed play, and for the next few minutes, no one spoke. They watched themselves, every movement, every decision, every moment they crossed a line. When the footage ended, the room was silent again, but this silence was different, heavy, unavoidable, because now there was no denying it. My mother was the first to speak, her voice quieter than before. "We didn't think." "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't." My father looked at the screen again, then at me. His expression had changed. Less confident, more uncertain. "We thought you'd understand," he said. I shook my head. "No. You hoped I wouldn't stop you." Daniel looked away, clearly uncomfortable now. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, but it didn't sound convincing anymore. Because the truth was right there, in front of all of us. "I'm giving you one chance," I said calmly. "Take your things, leave, and don't come back without my permission." My mother looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. My father hesitated, then slowly nodded. "All right," he said. It wasn't agreement. It was acceptance. Because for the first time, they realized something had changed. Completely. Daniel grabbed his box again, more aggressively this time. "Fine," he snapped. "I didn't want to stay here anyway." But we both knew that wasn't true. One by one, they started gathering the things they had brought in. No more arguments. No more pressure. Just quiet movement. And something else. Something new. Respect. Not the kind that comes naturally. The kind that comes when someone finally realizes they can't control you anymore. When they finished, they walked toward the door. My mother paused for a second. "Lily," she started, but then she stopped, because there was nothing left to say. My father opened the door. Daniel walked out first. Then my mother. Then him. And just like that, they were gone. I stood there in the silence of my house, looking around, everything exactly where it should be. Untouched. Safe. But inside, something had shifted. Because this wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about boundaries, respect, and truth. And I had a feeling this wasn't over yet. Because people who feel entitled don't let go that easily. And what happened the next day proved exactly that. The house felt quiet after they left. Too quiet. Not peaceful, just still. Like something had been disturbed and hadn't fully settled yet. I locked the door immediately, not out of fear, but out of certainty, because what had just happened wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision. And people who make decisions like that don't usually stop after one attempt. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying everything. The way they walked in, the way they spoke, the way they expected me to accept it. But what stayed with me the most was how normal it all felt to them. That's what made it dangerous. Not anger, not conflict, but entitlement. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. Part of me expected it to ring. An apology, an explanation, something, but nothing came. No messages, no missed calls, just silence. And somehow, that felt worse, because silence meant one of two things. They didn't care, or they were planning something else. Around mid-morning, my phone finally buzzed. A message from my mother. We need to talk. Short, direct, like nothing had happened. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back. About what? Her reply came quickly. About yesterday, and moving forward. Moving forward. That phrase felt strange, like she was trying to skip past everything. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I set the phone down, because I wasn't going to rush into another conversation on their terms. Not this time. About an hour later, my doorbell rang. I froze, because I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked slowly toward the door, checked the camera feed on my phone, and there they were, my parents, standing outside, alone. No Daniel this time. I didn't open the door immediately. Instead, I spoke through the intercom. Why are you here? My mother looked up at the camera. We just want to talk, Lily. I kept my voice calm. You should have called. We did message you, my father said. That's not the same. A brief silence. Then my mother spoke again. Please, just 5 minutes. I hesitated. Not because I trusted the situation, but because I wanted to see what they would say. Finally, I unlocked the door, but I didn't step aside. I stayed right there in the doorway, creating a clear line, a boundary. They noticed. Of course they did. And this time, they didn't try to cross it. Talk, I said. My mother looked at my father, then back at me. We didn't handle things well yesterday. That was new. Not perfect, but different. I nodded slightly. No, you didn't. My father cleared his throat. We thought we were helping. I almost smiled at that, because I had heard that line my entire life. You weren't, I said. This time, he didn't argue. We see that now, he admitted. That surprised me, because admitting fault wasn't something he did easily. What do you want? I asked. My mother hesitated, then said carefully, we want to fix this. I looked at her. What does fix mean to you? Another pause, because that question mattered more than anything. It means respecting your decisions, she said slowly, even when we don't agree. That was new. I studied her face, trying to see if she meant it. If this was real, or just another attempt to smooth things over. And Daniel? I asked. My father sighed. He'll figure things out. The same words they had used for years. But this time, they sounded different. Less like an excuse. More like a reality. He won't be moving in here, I said, clearly. We understand, my mother replied quickly. No argument. No pushback. Just acceptance. That was the first real sign that something had shifted. But I wasn't done. You can't just show up here like that again, I added. You don't use that key unless I say it's okay. My father reached into his pocket, pulled out the spare key, and held it out toward me. Then you should have this back. I looked at it for a moment, then took it, because that wasn't just a key, it was control, and they were finally giving it up. We're sorry, Lily, my mother said softly. I didn't respond right away, because apologies are easy, change is harder, and I needed to see more than words. I hear you, I said finally. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it wasn't rejection either. Just acknowledgement. They both nodded, understanding what that meant. We'll give you space, my father said, and we'll respect your boundaries. I held his gaze. I expect that. No hesitation. No doubt. Just clarity. After a moment, they turned to leave. No pressure. No lingering. Just departure. And that, more than anything else, felt different. I closed the door slowly, locked it again, and leaned back against it, exhaling, because something had changed. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to matter. For the first time, they weren't trying to control the situation. They were adjusting to it, and that was new territory for all of us. But later that afternoon, I received something that changed everything again. A notification from my security system. New activity detected. I frowned, because I hadn't left the house. I opened the app, checked the camera feed, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Because this time, it wasn't my parents, it was Daniel. And he wasn't alone. For a second, I thought I was seeing it wrong. I replayed the footage, then again, but it didn't change. Daniel was standing outside my house, and he wasn't alone. 2 other men stood with him, strangers. One of them was pointing toward my front door. The other was holding something that looked like a clipboard. My stomach tightened, because this didn't look like a visit. This looked official, or at least like they wanted it to seem official. I kept watching. Daniel stepped closer to the door, knocked once, then again. Harder this time. I didn't move, didn't make a sound, because something about this felt wrong, very wrong. One of the men said something I couldn't hear clearly. Daniel nodded, then reached toward the door handle. He tried it. Locked. Of course it was locked. Then he stepped back, visibly irritated. The man with the clipboard leaned in, saying something else. This time, Daniel shook his head and pulled out his phone, probably calling someone. My mind immediately went to one thought. Mom, Dad. But I had just seen them. They had just left, and they had given me the key back. So what was this? I kept watching. The 3 of them stood there for another minute. Then one of the men gestured toward the driveway. They all turned and walked away. I exhaled, slowly. But the tension didn't leave, because now I knew. This wasn't over, not even close. I grabbed my phone and called my mother. She answered almost immediately. Lily? Why is Daniel outside my house with 2 strangers? I asked, my voice steady but firm. Silence. Then, what? She said, clearly confused. I just saw him on my security cameras, I continued. He tried to get in. I don't know anything about that, she replied quickly. I listened carefully, trying to hear hesitation, trying to catch something. But she sounded genuinely surprised. I thought he was at home, she added. I frowned. Then you might